What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel. Alright, so continuing our discussions on DC Rebirth, we pick up now with I Am Suicide. I kind of miss the old intro, so what I want to do here is have a discussion about I Am Suicide. This is actually really cool. This story is, Tom King, dude, this guy's kind of crazy. With Vision, it was crazy good. With I Am Gotham, it wasn't really hitting the mark. With I Am Suicide, I'm impressed. I mean, this is a good story. This is a really, really solid story. And I think it really speaks volumes to the way that he uses characters, right? Because in comic books, there's all different kinds of characters out there, and a lot of people use them in a lot of different ways. But the mark of a really good storyteller is a person who can use a character in a way that was just never really used before, a way that we never really thought to use them before. And what I'm talking about here is actually the relationship between Psycho Pirate and Bane, and we'll actually get to that here in a minute. But what this does is this gives us a little bit of a rehash with regards to Bane's origin story in DC Rebirth. Now, I do have a video on the origin of Bane as part of DC Rebirth, and you guys are welcome to check that out. You'll find the link down in the description. But again, it really just kind of refreshes us that Bane basically spent a large majority of his life in Santa Prisca prison. He escaped for a while, but it also confirms the events of Nightfall in Batman's continuity. Now, this had been confirmed already. I mean, Bane had already reappeared. I think it was part of Batman Eternal. I know that was hushed, but I actually never really read through Batman Eternal. I'm just kind of going on some of the videos that I think Benny made. But with Batman's continuity, and I actually want to talk about this for a second because a lot of people have expressed confusion on where things stand. With Batman's continuity, it can be a bit confusing. So when the New 52 launched, because remember, the DC Rebirth event is basically still the New 52 continuity. When New 52 launched, Batman got, a retelling of his origin in the form of really, Batman Zero Year. But the question a lot of fans had is, if according to New 52, it's only been 5 years since superheroes first showed up on the scene, then what does that mean for Batman's history? What does it mean for events like Nightfall and events like Death in the Family and the Killing Joke and all that kind of stuff? And DC basically said, well, everything in the history of Batman happened in 5 years. And so it really, it strained credulity. DC Rebirth has actually come back and said, well, it's actually 10 years, not 5. But we still have yet to see how DC Rebirth will expand into the overall larger DC continuity and how it's all going to come together. So again, there's a lot of questions that exist there, and there's a lot of things that still need to be answered. But at the very least, again, this kind of reminds us that Bane is a guy that did fight Batman. He did break his back during Nightfall, and so the two of them do have history together. More so than that, Psycho Pirate is not just a villain. And that's why I say things are kind of cool here. Now, we don't know if this is Roger Hayden or if this is Charles Housestead. I think it is. I was actually talking to Sal and I was talking to Joel about this in the Weekly Pool chat because I was trying to figure it out. I was like, which one is it? Is it, DC's never really said. And it doesn't really matter in particular, I don't think. But historically speaking, Psycho Pirate's always been a guy that had the ability to manipulate the emotions of others to basically make them feel certain emotions. So he can make a person feel fear. He can make them feel anger, happiness, sadness, so on and so forth. But he was always a guy that did this for, his own particular crimes, or maybe he would go against some super powerful being or something like that. In this story, Tom King basically turns him into a drug. And it's really, really cool because Bane is literally just kind of recounting, going back and more or less giving Psycho Pirate his backstory and talking about the pain and torment that he feels over the course of the failures that he's had in his life. When he was basically forced to live in Santa Prisca because of his father's actions, when he was forced to experience the death of his mother, when he had been defeated by Batman after defeating him, all these things, all these experiences in his life has just kind of sent him into an emotional freefall. And so he basically uses Psycho Pirate to make him feel better. He tells the Psycho Pirate, tell me that I'm happy, tell me that I'm brave, tell me that I can always stop. And so instead of being addicted to like Venom, the drug that basically gave him super strength and so on, it's really just him being addicted to the emotional feelings that Psycho Pirate can engender inside of him. Now from here, we pick up with Gotham Girl, because keep in mind, throughout most all of Tom King's run, following the events of I Am Gotham, where both Gotham and Gotham Girl were introduced as a brother and sister superhero duo, where Psycho Pirate had manipulated Gotham into basically losing his mind, becoming a bad guy, and then eventually it took the whole Bat family to kill him. Gotham Girl was manipulated to feel extreme fear, and that's never really gone away. She's never really gotten over that. She's been able to temporarily get past it, but it was very much like Jessica Cruz, when she was introduced. She was just always afraid. She'd be able to get over that fear, but it was only for a temporary amount of time. It's only now in Sam Humphrey's Green Lanterns that she's finally learning how to conquer her fear, especially after the events of Darkseid War, and she's able to actually become a Green Lantern and start creating constructs. With Gotham Girl, it's much the same way. The problem with this is that because the influence of Psycho Pirate is so strong, Bruce Wayne comes to the realization, he basically says, I've got to go, and I've got to find Psycho Pirate. I basically basically have to go to Santa Prisca, to the base of Bane, get Psycho Pirate, and bring him back. The problem is Batman can't do that on his own. Between Bane, between Psycho Pirate, between all the soldiers that they have there, there's no way Batman will be able to pull this off by himself. And so what he needs is a team. Now, this is where things get cool, because the story kind of takes on this like Ocean's 11 kind of feel to it. Not in the sense of like, the goofy or the jokey nature and like, thieving and so on and so forth, but in the sense that Batman is effectively putting together a team. So it's like, Batman's 4, I guess Batman's 11, that'd be a cool story. Like Bruce Wayne's 11, like I would read like Bruce Wayne's like, we're gonna go rob casinos in Las Vegas. I would love that. But the first person that he picks up traveling to Arkham Asylum is Ventriloquist. Now this guy, Arnold Wesker, is probably like, he's the queen on the chessboard. He's the most, I guess not really the most important, but the most powerful piece with regards to the plan that they're gonna have going on. And the reason why is going to become apparent as we get to the end of this. But Arnold Wesker is a guy that DC really toys with. The reason why the whole relationship between like Woody, the puppet, and the ventriloquist Arnold Wesker was so cool, and the reason why he's always been kind of a mainstay as a villain in DC's comics, is because of the fact that DC walked the line. We always kind of knew he had multiple personality, but there were some writers who wrote stories about him where there were times where it seemed like Woody was real, like the puppet was actually real, and Wesker was just doing what the puppet wanted him to do. Being able to give the puppet life really changed everything. And so because of that, it added a whole bunch of different effects. More so than this, some of the other people that he picks up, of course, is actually a girl named Jewel, a guy named Bronze Tiger, and then another guy named Punch. Now, of course, Bronze Tiger, a lot of people are pretty familiar with him. The story as it's given here is pretty self-explanatory. He more or less suffers from delusions of grandeur, but he's still a very capable fighter. Not only that, of course, Batman's like, look, you're a little faster than I am. I need you on my team for this mission that we're going to go on. But Jewel and Punch are actually a little more intriguing here. Of course, with Batman being accompanied by Commissioner Gordon, Jewel is a girl who's basically been stuck in a catatonic state. Now, the introduction of Jewel and Punch actually came out of the possible cancellation of the Joker, and a lot of people don't know that. Back in the 1960s, it was entirely possible that because Batman's comics just weren't selling and the Joker wasn't doing well because of the Comics Code, DC thought about like killing his character off. But what they needed was a more tamed down version, but still entertaining equivalent of the Joker. And so in 1967, I think it was a Captain Atom comic, they introduced Jewel and Punch. Now they were like the Joker Harley Quinn. They were like a one-two punch combo when it came to being silly and being nonsensical. Of course, it was like the Joker and Harley Quinn about 30 years before Harley Quinn. But the fact remains here that they were basically nonsensical. They were slapstick. Jewel has these jewels that allow her to use different abilities, energy projection, manipulating emotions, and so on. These guys have their own little gadgets, their own little tricks. But what we learn here is that with Jewel having been in a catatonic state, that Commissioner Gordon is not Commissioner Gordon. Instead, Commissioner Gordon is actually Punch. And what Punch had done is he had come to the realization that if Jewel was within Arkham Asylum, a time would come when Batman would basically go to see her for whatever reason, for information or something along those lines. And when that time came, he was basically going to be at his side, disguised as Commissioner Gordon. Now, of course, Bruce Wayne picks up on this almost immediately, but allowed it to go through. And the reason why was because he looked at Punch and said, it's astounding the lengths that you will go to rescue this woman that you care so much about. You literally tricked the entirety of the Arkham staff. You broke into an insane asylum in order to rescue the woman that you love. And he says, I need a person that has skills like that. Now, the last person that we pick up with, and this is why when the story first launched, when I Am Suicide first launched, it was a huge deal because everyone thought this was the Joker. The story initially started off, or I guess this conversation initially started off almost exactly like the Killing Joke. I've been thinking lately about you and me. That's how the Killing Joke started off when Batman first encountered the Joker in the story, the conversation that they had. But as, Batman's talking to this person and begins to undo the mask on their face, we learn that it's Catwoman. And the reason why she's here is because she killed 237 people and we don't know why. Now, of course, we actually figure that out, or at least we're told what it is here in a second. And the story behind this is actually really kind of cool. What Catwoman says, or at least, the way it's given to us is kind of like in a letter that she wrote to Bruce Wayne as he's basically having all these guys, or at least he's invading Santa Prisca. It's really one of these situations where Catwoman compared herself to Bruce Wayne in a lot of different ways. That as a girl who was raised in an orphanage that was run by Thomas and Martha Wayne, she had seen, the picture of Bruce and Thomas and Martha, and had always imagined herself being a part of him. And that was always really kind of a cool element of her character is Catwoman always aspired for better, but always tried to achieve better in the worst way possible. But the kicker to all this is that she essentially says that her parents, she never really knew them, never really had a chance to meet with them. Instead, the orphanage, the fire that was caused was by some crazy terrorist group, and there were 237 37 of them. And so what she did is she started in Gotham City, and she literally went through and killed every last one of them. And then she expanded outside of Gotham City and eventually traveled the world, killing every single member of this terrorist group. You know, they committed their act and they had no reason, no motivation, there were no claims, no demands, no nothing. They just did it for the sole purpose of inspiring fear. Now that's why she's in Arkham Asylum. And in fact, the next little bit of the story will really focus on Batman in terms of him originally catching her. That part's not extremely important. It is kind of interesting, but we're gonna go ahead and actually leave that out of the story just because of the fact that it's not really a necessity for the main events that are going on here. But with Batman arriving at Santa Prisca, of course, it's one against 1,000. And despite how capable he is, I'm actually glad with what Tom King did here, because some writers may have been tempted. Some writers, you know, may have been like, yeah, of course, it's ridiculously impossible. But Batman was somehow able to defeat 500 soldiers and it all happened off panel. Tom King's like, no, that's stupid. Like that, it'd be cool to see, but there's no way. Even the most staunch of Batman fans would just be like, I mean, I don't know about that, man. Like, I mean, I love Batman, but he's not going to defeat 500 people with automatic machine guns. It's not going to happen. And so, of course, Batman is effectively taken prisoner. Now, he's brought before Bane himself. And the kicker about all this is, remember, Bane is not using venom right now. So he's not using the substance that allows him to take on this extreme strength. And in fact, during his conversation with Bruce Wayne and with Batman, he basically tells him this. He's like, I'm not using venom right now, so I can't defeat you as easily as I did the first time we met when I broke your back in Gotham City. But he says I could still break your back. And that's exactly what he does. He breaks Batman's back. And so what he does is he basically takes him, drags him down to the same prison cell that Bane himself had spent so much time in, and then just kind of leaves Batman there. Now, of course, Batman is able to make his escape, you know, the comic being what it is. Batman is able to get out, but once he does, we basically learn that, you know, Selina Kyle, the Catwoman, had come along as part of this plan, and that she had personally brought the ventriloquist. The point of Batman even being caught in the first place was to basically be thrown in a prison cell and then allow, you know, himself to basically open a back door for Catwoman and the ventriloquist to get in, because in his mind, he knew that as intelligent as Bane is, you know, in Bane's mind, Batman can't escape. If Batman's back is broken, he's not going to be able to get out. And so if he's being held prisoner, there's really nothing Bruce Wayne can do. And so he can effectively just kind of throw him in there and call it a day. Now, at this point, we switch over to the conversation that these guys are having here. And again, this is really kind of cool because what this does is it actually allows Selina Kyle and it allows the ventriloquist to have this interesting conversation, because it really did beg the question, you know, who is this in control when it comes to the ventriloquist? Is it multiple personality, or is it the idea that the ventriloquist himself is really being subjected to the control of a puppet? And of course, during the conversations between the two, Selina Kyle begins asking things. She's like, you know, is it really just the puppet or is it you? You know, and in the mind of the ventriloquist, he's like, no, it's not just me. The puppet really does have control. You know, that's really the monster. He's really the one making me do these things. Now, for Selina Kyle, this is kind of cool, you know, because she's like, basically, this guy's gotten out. He can plead insanity every single time because, you know, to anybody looking at him for what it is, he's got multiple personalities. I mean, you know, the ventriloquist is just a personality, a counterpart to him. Now, the reason for this is because back in the early days of Arnold Wesker's life, he was really timid. He was really meek. He was, for all intents and purposes, a coward. He was scared of everything. He was always running and hiding from all of his different problems and things like that. But eventually his parents were killed. And in the emotional turmoil, really, that came out of this experience, he basically ended up developing a second personality that didn't manifest until he came in contact with a guy named Donegan, I think it was. And this guy Donegan literally had a dummy named Woody. And the dummy began talking to Arnold Wesker and eventually helped him to escape. And the two of them just kind of went on a crime spree. But the fact remains here that by his very nature, by his very definition, Arnold Wesker is a guy who just does what he's told. He doesn't have any initiative. He has no drive, no ambition. You'd never get anything beyond what you tell him to do. He's very much robotic in that sense. And so because of that, you know, Selina Kyle basically says, yeah, I know Batman told us that you're supposed to stay with me, but what I'm telling you is stay here. And so the initial indication here that Tom King is giving us is that she's breaking out of the plan that Batman set for them. Now, of course, from here, we pick up with the other half of the plan in the sense that Bronze Tiger and Punch and Jewel had basically approached Santa Prisca prison with the idea that Bronze Tiger himself was bringing Punch directly to Bane. Now, the reason for this is because Punch was like one of the only guys, I think the only guy, who was able to successfully break out of Santa Prisca prison. And so because of this, it's very much sought after to essentially have him return home, if for no other reason than the fact that Bane's just collecting trophies. The kicker to all this is that, you know, while this conversation is taking place, Batman's watching it all unfold from a ventilation shaft. Selina Kyle jumps in, you know, and she basically takes out Bronze Tiger, and then she spills the beans of the whole plan to Bane and basically says the whole reason why these guys are here is a ruse. They're supposed to be a distraction. I'm supposed to kidnap Psycho Pirate. Batman's gonna jump back in. He's gonna fight you. And while all that's going on, I'll make off with Psycho Pirate and we'll get him back to Gotham City, and then everybody's just gonna leave. Maybe they'll die, maybe they won't, but that's the intentional plan, is for everybody to make it out. In the middle of all this, we have what looks like Selina Kyle killing Jewel and then turning around and killing Punch. And so it's like, okay, this is really the worst case scenario right here. Catwoman just destroying the entire plan that Batman had laid down. Now, when I was going through this, I was just kind of like, holy cow, like this is extremely bad, because what this basically means is that they're all most likely going to die at the hands of Bane. And so with Batman more or less being held prisoner here, or at the very least, kind of forced to submit to a degree, it's the idea that they're effectively going to take him out. Like they're going to do him in. It seems like it's the end of the road for Bruce Wayne. Now, at this point, we have people who are just kind of spread out in different locations. And so what's going on here, and it actually took a minute for this to kind of sink in. What's going on here is the equivalent of a chess game. Anybody who plays chess knows the worst thing you could do is bunch your players up. More so than that, you should always have your pieces strategically placed in different locations, because the best way to checkmate a player is to checkmate them at a distance, but to also effectively box them into a corner, box them against their own pieces. That's one of the best ways to win. Because of this, think of these guys as chess pieces. We have Bronze Tiger, who's basically been thrown down, in the pit with all the other soldiers and killers for hire under Bane's control. We have Arnold Wesker, who's still just kind of sitting down in the sewers, waiting for someone to come and tell him what to do. Jewel and Punch are dead. They're being sent off to the furnaces, and Catwoman is sitting alongside Bane while Batman begins to fight him. Now, the other half of this is that Bane is very much taunting Batman in this skirmish. Bane is very much basically saying, you and I are exactly the same in a lot of different ways. Now, the argument Bane makes here is good, and it's very easy to discount this, but the argument that he makes is actually pretty legitimate here, and the reason why is Bane is extremely intelligent. I mean, Bane, what we saw in The Dark Knight Returns, in terms of his strength, that was pretty cool, but in terms of his intelligence, it was nowhere near what he needed to be. At the end of the movie, he was still basically just a henchman. He was working for Talia al Ghul. Spoiler alert for a 7-year-old movie. For the comics, Bane was always wildly intelligent. He educated himself. He was able to deduce Batman's identity in somewhere between 3 to 6 months, I think it was. He's one of the smartest guys when it comes to combat, strategy, so on and so forth. And what he tells Batman is, look, over the course of my life, I thought Venom was the answer. I thought that having this substance that would grant me super strength would allow me to achieve what it is that would make this pain go away. That would make me feel like a better person, because I felt like I could do anything. But he said that's not the answer. The answer is actually Psycho Pirate. Psycho Pirate will make you feel better. All you have to do is tell him that you want to be happy. All you have to do is tell him that you want to be brave. All you have to do is tell him that you can always stop. And so he tells Batman, tell me this. Tell Psycho Pirate this. Batman responds by saying, all I want to do is I want to break your back. And that's when all the chess pieces start moving around. We learn that Jewel and Punch are not dead. They're very much alive. The Bronze Tiger is feeding for Venom, and he basically starts attacking all these different guys. Bronze Tiger then turns around and begins making his way back up to where Batman is. Punch and Jewel are basically using their tricks and so on and so forth to basically create air bubbles using gum, so they can, jump out of the furnace, they can jump into the water, come back up to the surface without having to worry about drowning by simply breathing in the oxygen that they have in there. Now, of course, this stretches the limits of credulity, but at the very least, it makes for an interesting story. Finally, we basically pick up with all these different guys moving in the direction of Arnold Wesker, and we have Bronze Tiger finally taking Wesker, bringing him to where Batman's located. On top of all this, the plan seems to have been this the entire time. Batman seems to have orchestrated this the whole time, because Catwoman keeps saying, do you want me to get involved? Do you want me to get involved? And then finally Batman says, break him. And Catwoman jumps in and breaks Bane's back. And so again, it seems to be the entire plan of Batman to basically not only defeat Bane, or I guess not only take Psycho Pirate, but to crush Bane. To basically say, at the end of the day, you're nowhere near where I'm at. Who you are right now is a shadow of your former self. Now, a lot of the success still hinges on Arnold Wesker. And the reason why is because, again, Psycho Pirate can manipulate the emotions of anyone who sees him. And so because of this, if he looks at Batman, if he looks at, any of these guys and targets them, he'll send them into states of absolute insanity by manipulating their emotions. But with Arnold Wesker, it's not that way, because Arnold Wesker is emotionally repressed. He doesn't allow his emotions to get out there. He's just a robot. He just does what he's told to do. And And so because of this, in the middle of Psycho Pirate more or less taunting Wesker, we suddenly have the personality of Woody the puppet emerging in the form of a talking hand. And then this is really just Arnold Wesker's defense, his own consciousness coming out and basically saying, no one can control me. The only person that can control Arnold Wesker is, of course, Woody. You know, no one controls the ventriloquist. And so, of course, because of this, Psycho Pirate's taken out, which leads to Bronze Tiger taking out Arnold Wesker to make sure that he can't become, you know, too wildly dangerous. But again, this just kind of allows the story to come to its organic end, with Batman taunting Bane one last time by basically saying, a time's going to come when you're going to want revenge, you know, when you're going to want to come after me. And when that time comes, don't, because you're going to get more of the same. And so what this story does is it concludes with the various guards of Bane, you know, coming running in to his aid. And the one thing he keeps calling for is venom. And so the indication here is that Bane is going to go back to being the same Bane he used to be, where he was all juiced up and he was like 3 times the normal size of a human being, and he was breaking Batman's back. So I'm really excited to see what direction the story goes in from here. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained and you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys like this video, make sure you drop a like and leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about Batman Rebirth. So Batman Rebirth so far, because I personally love it. I think it's a mishmash of great storytelling and decent storytelling, but like all the other DC Rebirth titles so far, there's not been anything that's been like bad. There's been no bad titles from DC Rebirth. So let me know what you guys think so far, and I will catch you all later. Peace.